Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And breaking news. The Nintendo Switch Pro is an actual thing and was officially announced today, though it's not exactly too pro. It might be more of a G League type of thing, but yes, we did get a Switch revision announcement today for the Nintendo Switch OLED model. Yes, the rumors were partially true, but like I said before, this isn't quite the pro revision that many fans had hoped for, and I'm actually seeing quite a bit of disappointment. Now, for me personally, I'm not quite as disappointed as everybody else, but I will explain what's happening with all this here later on in the video. Of course, you can skip right to that section, but as always, we do have a lot of other things to talk about, including more Xbox Game Pass games for the month of July. Yeah, the month of July is starting to shape up for Xbox Game Pass, and we'll go over all that as well. But to start today off, we have some PlayStation news to go over today as they announced their next event of State of Play. And this event will be taking place very soon. In fact, this State of Play will take place on Thursday, July 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So there it is. I know PlayStation fans have been waiting for a new State of Play for a little while now as E3 took place last month. Though it does look like PlayStation is setting proper expectations with this event. Don't go in expecting any kind of update for the next God of War or Horizon Forbidden West or any kind of next generation of PlayStation VR. They did say that those will not be at this event. So you're probably wondering, what will they show at this event? And well, it looks like the State of Play will be approximately 30 minutes and will show some independent and third-party updates, including the highly anticipated Deathloop. Now, Deathloop, of course, is being developed by Arcane Studios, which is owned by Bethesda, which is a whole tricky situation that we'll kind of get into here in just a moment. But Deathloop is coming from the same studio who worked on Dishonored, which, that was a very good game. And honestly, I think that Deathloop looks very similar to Dishonored. And that's kind of the thing when it comes to Arcane Studios. They don't always necessarily make the best-selling games in the world, but what they do is make very high-quality games. And that's one reason that people are excited for Deathloop. Now, as I kind of mentioned before, though, Arcane is actually owned by Bethesda, which means this is technically an Xbox-owned studio. So the whole situation around this game is a little bit strange, to say the least, because technically, PlayStation will be marketing an Xbox game here at their PlayStation State of Play. Deathloop, after all, is a PlayStation-timed exclusive. Yeah, it's a little bit strange, as I said before, but Arcane really is a highly talented studio, and I'll be interested to see what they do with this game here at this State of Play event. Now, as for what else they have to show here, they did mention some third-party updates and independent games, so as long as you don't go into this State of Play expecting anything major, we could get a nice little event here this Thursday. With that said, if you are looking forward to the next God of War or Horizon Forbidden West, we actually might have gotten a leak revealing when we should expect more information on those two games in particular. And this leak is actually coming from a Reddit user by the name of Quim6, which I don't typically talk about Reddit leaks, but apparently Quim6 has gotten some things right in the past, and that's why we're going to just kind of go over this real quick. Apparently, Quim6 has leaked out some legitimate information in the past, such as Far Cry 6 marketing materials like a statue, and even leaked out Thursday's PlayStation State of Play date, which was July 8th. So they did leak the State of Play date accurately last month and claims that the Grand Theft Auto 5 Enhanced Edition will be shown at this event. And that can actually be used as a bit of a test to see if maybe the rest of this information could possibly be true as well. And this is where things do get a little bit more interesting because Quim6 does claim that a new God of War Ragnarok trailer will be revealed this August. So if this is true, we're not going to have to wait too much longer before we see God of War Ragnarok. And I know for me, that's actually really exciting. God of War, in my opinion, is one of the best games that released last generation. And I want to see what they do with God of War Ragnarok. I mean, really, so far, we've only got that logo, and that's already got people excited on its own. So let's just wait until we see some actual footage of this game, and then we can really start to hype this game up. But like I said before, do take this information with a grain of salt. You never really know when it comes to leaks like this. If it does happen, though, it looks like the next couple months is going to be a lot of fun for PlayStation fans. Next up though, let's talk about that quote-unquote Nintendo Switch Pro. This has by far been one of the worst kept secrets in the game industry, and we've been talking about the Nintendo Switch Pro for probably close to an entire year by this point. There was just so many leaks when it came to this thing, though not everything was 100% accurate, and we'll kind of get into that here in just a moment, but it's now official. Nintendo has announced the Switch OLED model, and it will release on October 8th for $350. And right away, you probably realize this Switch OLED model is going for a premium price and will be $50 more than the original Switch. So what are you going to get for that extra $50? Well, there's actually a few notable improvements here, especially when it comes to handheld mode. Now, when it comes to docked mode, there's definitely going to be some disappointment with that, which, again, I will get into here in just a moment. But the biggest improvement here, of course, is that OLED screen, which will be 7 inches as opposed to the 6.2 LCD screen for the original Switch. This is a pretty big improvement here because, like I've said in the past, OLED is such an improvement over LCD. I've been a big believer in OLED since the original PlayStation Vita came out because that thing looked absolutely amazing, and of course it was using an OLED screen. Let's go ahead and say it, the PlayStation Vita was far ahead of its time, and I keep saying that thing still holds up extremely well today. So here we are 10 years later, and now Nintendo has finally adopted OLED screens as well. And if you do play in handheld mode, that already is a big improvement over the original Switch. You're just going to get better overall visuals when it comes to an OLED screen. I also really like how they changed the size of the Nintendo Switch OLED screen to 7 inches, because they didn't really change the size of the overall Nintendo Switch device. It's still the same size tablet and Joy-Cons. What they did here is they actually removed some of the bezels on the tablet to make the screen larger, and what this does is it allows you to use your current Joy-Cons with this device, or if you have something like a grip that you put onto your Nintendo Switch in handheld mode, you can still continue to use that because technically they're still the same size and there's not really a difference with the model itself. It's just the screen that is a bit larger because they removed the bezels. So I really do like the way they handled that. And that wasn't the only major improvement when it comes to handheld play, because this one's actually being quietly overlooked, and that's enhanced audio. Now, my two biggest complaints with the original Nintendo Switch was the screen itself and then its audio. I think the audio in the original Switch is just not acceptable at all. I've personally bought headphones in the past just to try to improve the audio on the Nintendo Switch. So with the Switch OLED getting enhanced audio, and it does look like the speakers are actually on the front this time as opposed to the back, I really don't know what Nintendo was thinking with that design. Kind of reminds me with the 2DS, the audio speaker placement for that thing was also atrocious, but I do think having enhanced audio and better speaker positioning is quietly a very big feature for this Switch OLED model. I really don't think people should be overlooking that because this very simple update will make handheld play just a better overall experience. So those, in my opinion, are probably the two major improvements when it comes to the Switch OLED model, though this is where things get a little bit more disappointing, especially if you were hoping that they would make a big improvement on docked mode. So the other improvements include LAN port for TV play. You have 64 gigabytes of internal storage, that's always a nice thing. And then you have a wide adjustable stand, which overall, I mean, that's just a better way of handling the stand than what the original Switch was. That thing was kind of cheaply made, and this just looks like, again, a much more premium device. But the one thing that a lot of people were expecting was 4K resolution in docked mode. There was two things that were pretty consistent with the Switch Pro leaks, and that was a 7-inch OLED screen and then 4K docked mode. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and in fact, this Switch OLED model doesn't even have better specs than the original Switch. You really are basically paying an extra $50 to have a better overall handheld experience, and that's just not going to be for everybody. Not everybody is going to be able to justify paying $350 to get a new Switch when it doesn't have better overall specs. And I can definitely understand that, especially if you play primarily in docked mode. Now, for somebody like myself who primarily plays in handheld mode, I think that there's definitely some interesting inclusions with this device. Like I said, having that upgrade to audio as well as an OLED screen, yeah, I think that is actually very enticing. If I have the chance, I'm definitely going to pick up the Switch OLED screen this holiday. If I have the chance. I mean, I know there's definitely some scalping issues out there, and we still don't have any pre-order information as of this recording, so I'll see if I can actually get this one pre-ordered or not. But with that said, I am kind of interested to see what happened with the leaks, because there was some credible sources claiming that this device was going to have 4K resolution. I mean, we heard that from news outlets such as Bloomberg, and I'm kind of curious if maybe they were originally planning to have a 4K chip in this device, but maybe because the ongoing chip shortages, they went ahead and decided against that. I mean, these chip shortage issues are definitely a real thing, so I mean, it is possible that they could have taken that into consideration. Regardless, it doesn't look like it quite panned out, but I don't think we can exactly rule out that Nintendo won't do another revision for the Switch in the future. Now, I'm not coming out here claiming that they're going to announce a new Switch revision next year or anything like that, but all I'm trying to say is that, I mean, if you look at the 3DS, that thing had the original 3DS, it had the 2DS, it had the 3DS XL, it had the new 2DS XL, and then it had the new 3DS XL. So they definitely had a lot of revisions with the 3DS, and you just can't rule out that Nintendo might do another revision in the future that might focus a little bit more on the TV mode than what we saw this time with handheld mode. Either way, I know there's a lot of disappointment when it comes to this Switch OLED model, because it is $350 and we're not actually seeing any kind of improvement with specs here. So yeah, this new Switch revision didn't exactly meet expectations for a lot of people. And yeah, let me know in the comments below on what you thought about this announcement. Are you looking forward to the Switch OLED model, or are you disappointed? Let me know in the comments below. Moving on, we need to talk about Xbox Game Pass yet again, because they revealed more games for the month of July. Now, this is in addition to more Xbox Game Pass games, which we will talk about here in just a moment, but they did reveal 6 games today, including The Medium and Dragon Quest Builders 2 for the cloud, UFC 4 for console, and then Bloodroots, Tropico 6, and Farming Simulator 19 for cloud, console, and PC. Now, overall, this is not the best Xbox Game Pass lineup in the world, but this is actually only a small portion of what's releasing in the first half of July. We did actually get a couple good releases last week, including Bug Fables, which I do highly recommend that game. I will continue to say that Bug Fables Everlasting Sapling is an amazing turn-based RPG, and if you like the classic Paper Mario games, you need to check that game out. But here it does look like Xbox Game Pass will be a little bit more backloaded in the month of July, because we do have several big games launching directly into Xbox Game Pass in the second half of the month. Now keep in mind they could add to this list, but this includes The Forgotten City, Last Stop, Crystals, which is something I'm really looking forward to, The Ascent, and then Flight Simulator for the Xbox Series. So yeah, the second half of the month for Xbox Game Pass is sounding really good, especially with Crystals, The Ascent, and Flight Simulator. Now, personally, I'm really excited about Crystals. I've been keeping an eye on this game for a long time, and it looks like another really good turn-based RPG that kind of takes cues from Chrono Trigger with its time travel narrative. We'll have to see how this one turns out, but I absolutely love the art style in this game. I'm really hoping this game turns out to be as good as it looks. And then you also have The Ascent, which is this isometric cyberpunk RPG. Now, Cyberpunk 2077 didn't turn out all that well, but this one, it looks really good from what we've seen so far, and it's got a surprising amount of anticipation, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in just a little bit. But yes, The Ascent launches directly into Xbox Game Pass on July 29th, and this is one that you might want to keep an eye on. This could end up being one of the better RPGs that releases in 2021 and could end up taking a lot of people by surprise, so definitely keep an eye on The Ascent. And of course, we can't forget about Flight Simulator, which will finally be making its way to the Xbox Series on July 27th. Of course, Flight Simulator released last year on PC, but fans on consoles have been waiting for a very long time, and I mean, if we're just going to talk about next generation visuals, I will be very interested to see how Flight Simulator looks on that Xbox Series X. This game looks phenomenal, and really it's photorealistic at times, so really excited to see some next generation visuals with Flight Simulator on the Xbox Series X. But yeah, like I said before, it definitely looks like Xbox Game Pass is a little bit more backloaded this month. There's definitely some good looking games for the first half, including Bug Fables. Please go check that game out. But the second half of the month with The Ascent, Flight Simulator, and Chris Tells all coming day one to Xbox Game Pass, yeah, Xbox Game Pass is definitely starting to shape up this month. Now, one thing that we've been seeing a lot here recently is studio acquisitions in the game industry. There's been a lot of studio acquisitions here recently, and just last week, we saw PlayStation pick up not one, but two different studios. They got Nix's Software, and then also the big one, which was Housemarque. But interestingly enough, it looks like PlayStation was not the only suitor for Housemarque, because they revealed that several other companies tried to acquire them as well. Now, they didn't reveal the exact publishers that was looking to acquire them, but they did say it was the usual suspects, which includes publishers from China, Sweden, and the United States. So I think we can kind of guess as to who these publishers were, which probably included Microsoft and Tencent in specific. Both of those always seem to be looking for acquisitions, so it would not be a surprise if they were interested in Housemarque at one point in time. I do wonder if that's one of the reasons that Sony went ahead and acquired Housemarque, though. Obviously, Housemarque and PlayStation have a long history of partnering up on games such as Resogun, and then most recently with Returnal, but if somebody else was looking to acquire Housemarque, yeah, I could see PlayStation stepping in and keeping that from happening. We saw something very similar with Nintendo when they acquired Next Level Games. There was some reports that some other publishers were looking into acquiring Next Level Games, which, developed Luigi's Mansion 3. And then Nintendo stepped in and said, nope, that's not going to happen. We're going to pick them up instead. So it sounds like something similar could have happened here with Housemarque. But regardless, I am happy that PlayStation picked them up because they've been such great partners for a long time, and I want to see what they can do together in the future. What I will say based off this report, though, is that we are far from done with acquisitions. It sounds like there's a bit of a bidding war going on behind the scenes, so be very interested to see what studio pops up in the acquisition list next. And onto the poll of the day, though. I like to do this every month, but I wanted to see what game that's releasing in July are you most looking forward to. And the winner here was a bit of a surprise. Actually, it was so surprising that I actually had to update this poll just to include this game. I originally posted with the options of Monster Hunter Stories 2, Zelda Skyward Sword, Chris Tells, and then Neo, The World Ends With You. But you all made it very clear that you all wanted The Ascent on this list, so I went back and updated this poll, and, well, guess what? The Ascent won with 52% of the votes. I always knew that there was some anticipation with this game, and we talked about that earlier in the video, but to see it win here, yeah, that's very impressive to say the least. And you know what, like I said earlier, I do think that this game looks really good. Though, personally, I'm going to have to go with something a bit different here. For myself, I'm actually really interested in Neo, The World Ends With You. I'm going to pick that one up on the Switch later this month. The original The World Ends With You that released on the DS was such a unique and interesting game, and I really want to see how Neo, The World Ends With You turns out. It does look a little bit different than the original game with it having that 3D world, but that makes it even more interesting in my opinion because I want to see how it's actually different compared to that first game. But yeah, I can honestly say that I'm looking forward to every game on this list, including your all's vote, which was The Ascent. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.